Please continue eating. Go ahead and get this thing started. Sorry if anybody had to park at Dollar General. This is a huge crowd, so thanks for coming. My name is Hunt Fitzgerald. I'm the chairman of the board of the Roxborough Area Chamber of Commerce, and today's Good Morning Coffee Hour is sponsored by Pershing County Partnership for Children as a part of their Week of the Young Child celebrations. We appreciate them hosting this breakfast this morning and look forward to their message. I'd like to recognize a few elected officials with us this morning. We have Gordon Powell, County Commissioners, Jimmy Clayton, County Commissioners, Kyle Puryear, County Commissioner, and running for re-election, Ray Jeffers, County Commissioner. He just snuck, there he is, he snuck in. City Council Mayor, Marilyn Newell, down over this side. Reggie Horton, Mark Phillips. Move on to Sheriff, Dewey Jones, also running for re-election, over there inside. Register of Deeds, Tanya Wilson. Margaret Bratcher, Board of Education. District Court Judge Jay Stoltz. Police Chief Hess. Do we have any other candidates that are running for election or re-election in the audience today that I have missed? All right, we're good. Also like to recognize any members of law enforcement and emergency service present this morning. We appreciate your service. Then we'll turn this over to Alicia to give us a few chamber announcements.
Sorry, Shorty has to move up to the microphone. You have got a lot of information at your seat. And some of that is chamber related, and then of course some of that is for Partnership for Children. We do want to let you know that we have a ribbon cutting tomorrow night at 5:30 for Black Creek Brewery on Depot Street. They have been there for a little while, but they finally have their outdoor beer garden ready to go, and so they are ready to launch that with the community. Tomorrow evening is also Third Thursday. You may have seen some promotions for that, where businesses are staying open late from 5 to 8 o'clock in the evening, or if those are some normal business hours for them, they are offering specials for customers. So we hope you can take part in that. One of the flyers at your table is for the Administrative Professionals Recognition Luncheon. That is next Wednesday, the 25th. We do still have seats available, so if someone from your organization would like to join us, we'd love to have them. And we are also still collecting door prizes and items for the goodie bags that everyone in attendance will get. So if you have any questions, just give our office a call. You also have a flyer for the barbecue fundraiser to benefit the City of Roxborough fireworks display for July 4th. That is May 4th. We do have a little bit of a sense of humor for those in the room who know that May 4th is Star Wars Day. But that will be taking place at the Furniture Mart parking lot. We're accepting pre-orders. We hope that you will support that cause being organized by Directors Roundtable. And then the golf tournament is coming up in a very few short weeks. We are still accepting teams and whole sponsorships, so just give our office a call on that too. Again, we very much appreciate you being here with us this morning, and we hope you enjoy the presentation.
And for your benefit, I will leave the microphone down here. So I'd like to invite Ann Gerard up to speak.
Thank you, Hunt. Thank you for joining us this morning. I am Ann Garrett with the Pershing County Partnership for Children, and April is a great month. We are celebrating the Week of the Young Child, and we also have an awareness of, it is Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month, so we are aware of that. And I'd like to thank everyone who's participated in that this month. We do have blue and silver pinwheels at each place, and those represent our awareness that there is a problem and how to take, we all have a role in preventing this. And we also shared our little people this year, as you see. Chief has brought his in. for you to decorate and display. And he has a little story about one of these. Chief House, would you like to speak about Ted, just really quickly about the baseball player?
So this is Ted, our little baseball player, and TED stands for Tell, Explain, and Describe. So talking with children who may have been abused, we want to encourage them to tell someone, to explain it, and to describe so that we can help them out.
Thank you, Ted. Tell, explain, and describe. So that's the Prevent Child Abuse, but also we have the Week of the Young Child, which is celebrating our children being safe, healthy, and ready for kindergarten. And we do that through a lot of different ways at our office and with our community partners. And so if anyone has children in childcare, this is the time to remember your daycare providers and to be thankful of how much they do for you. So the month is very busy, and so we'll move right along. Our board president, Martha Pickett, is here, and she would like to say a few words.
Good morning. I'm going to skip around a little. I'm going to let the mayor come up and read her proclamation first because I know that she works at this really cool place and she needs to go to work. So I'm going to let her come up and read her proclamation.
Good morning. Yeah, sometimes my two worlds do collide, and I'm sure those of you that are in the public and private sector have the same challenge sometimes. So it is a pleasure to be with you this morning. And as we come together for the awareness that Ann has already outlined, and of course to celebrate the Week of the Young Child, I look forward to the day when we have a number of documented cases of 0. And this could be strictly a celebration. So again, I appreciate all of our law enforcement, our social services people who are here today. We appreciate your service. Pray for you every single day. You are on the front lines when it comes to dealing with these issues that are coming forward today. So again, we thank all of you for your commitment to making our community safer and better for all citizens. From the City of Roxborough, proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2018. Whereas our children deserve the best we have within us and look to us to be protectors, role models, heroes. And whereas children who are loved and nurtured grow up to love and nurture others. They give back to their own families, their neighborhoods, and their communities the good that was bestowed on them. The cycle continues. And whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is the responsibility of every citizen and community, involvement is essential to breaking the cycle of abuse. And whereas it is vital that we join together to reach out to parents and children to prevent the senseless abuse and neglect of all children. Now therefore I, Marilyn P. Newell, Mayor of the City of Roxborough, do hereby proclaim April 2018 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Roxborough, North Carolina, and urge all citizens to support this observance. Thank you.
There's some people that work really hard. There's some people that work really hard at the partnership. And having been the board chair and been on the board for several years, you know, there's not a lot of turnover at the partnership with children. So that lets me know that they really do a good job and that they work well together and they work hard. So I want to recognize the staff. If y'all will stand there at that table right there. They also take care of me. They tell me what to do, which is kind of cool. Also, we have a board that meets. We actually do a lot of work in individual committees, and then as a board, we meet and we take care of business. And those members of the community work really hard too. And I'd like to recognize them if you are a board member for the Partnership with Children, if you would please stand. Okay. Also, I believe that our county commissioner chair is here today. Kyle's going to do this. Okay, Kyle's going to do this morning. He is going to read a proclamation from the county commissioners representing all the county commissioners, and I believe they're all here this morning. So they will stand and he will come and read.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. It's such an honor to be here for this special occasion. I do see one other county commissioner slipped in, so Ray Jeffers, thank you for coming. And so I'm not Tracy Kendrick. I think I'm a little better looking than Tracy. But again, thank you for allowing me to be here today. On behalf of the Person County Board of County Commissioners, on the week of the young child, whereas the Person County Partnership of Children and other local organizations, in conjunction with the National Association for the Education of Young Children, are celebrating the week of the young child, April 16 through 20 of 2018. And whereas by calling attention to the need for the high-quality early childhood services for the children and families within the community, state, these groups hope to improve the quality and availability of such services. And whereas the future of Person County depends on the quality of early childhood experiences provided to young children today. Now therefore, the Person County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the week of April 16 through 20 of 2018 as the week of the young child in Person County, and urge all citizens to recognize and support the needs of young children in Person County. Adopted this day, 9 April 2018, signed Tracy Kendrick, Chairman and Board of County Commissioners. Thank you.
Now I get to introduce our speaker this morning. And I have to tell you, yesterday I was in my office and Ronnie came to see me. So we were talking about kids, we were talking about all kinds of stuff, and I said, Ronnie, are you going to go to the breakfast tomorrow? And he said, yeah, I'm going. And I said, well, how come you're going? He said, because Cindy's speaking. And she's just awesome. So if Ronnie says that, it's really true, because he does not ever beat around the bush about how he feels about things, if you know him. So the other thing, although I don't know Cindy, I know that in this county, we have what's called the Dolly Parton Library. And it's a thing where children from 0 to 5 can get a book every month. And that was just in our county, and now it is statewide. So my little grandson, one of 10, is 2, and he's in Durham. And, you know, when he comes to see me, he comes up in his lap and he says, Grandmommy, will you read me a book? And it is just the coolest thing. There's nothing better than spending time with a child or grandchild, quality time, reading a book. It is just so awesome. And I really love it when he does that. And so now he gets to have those books too. He lives in Durham County. So I'm happy to introduce and welcome back Cindy Watkins.
It is such a pleasure to be here and to see so many friends. You know, when we asked the current board members to stand, it made me recognize or realize that we have a lot of former board members here. So if you've ever been on the board for the Partnership for Children, please stand up. Yes, thank you all. Hi, Jim. It's such a, matter of fact, Jim, I was thinking about you yesterday when I had coffee with Dr. Fail Wynn in Durham, and he said, give you his regards. So, from Fail Wynn. So as I was driving in this morning, I never know when the traffic is going to be coming from Raleigh, so I left home at 6 o'clock to get here. And as I crossed into the Person County line, I thought, oh boy, it feels so good to be back here. And to remember that it was 25 years ago that we started this initiative. And I know that some of you in this room are sitting around the dining room table at my house helping to write the Smart Start application. I think Ronnie was there. Jim Owen was there, I think Beverly Warren from the Department of Social Services, and Tom Bridges. It was a great group of people, and there was so much energy and enthusiasm for what this program could do and what it could mean for our young children. And I know that that enthusiasm still exists. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I'm going to tell some stories today. Those of you who know me well know that I love to tell stories. And so I want to start off by saying that how proud I am to have started doing this work in Person County 25 years ago as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Smart Start across the state, and to realize that it all started here. And to really thank you for the work that you're doing. I remember when I was here doing this work at the very beginning, Jane Brimmer came up to me and said, as I was getting ready to walk into the United Way for their funding proposal, she said, tell them you want them to fund the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. I said, I'll be glad to do that, but I have no idea what it is. And she said, that's okay, I'll tell you what it is, just ask them for funding. And so I did, and they did. And I think it was 2 years later, we went to meet Dolly in Pigeon Forge. So that program that started here 15 years ago is now statewide, and I am so proud of that because, as was mentioned earlier, this is a program that allows a book to be given to every child from the time they're born until they reach kindergarten. And as a former first grade teacher, I can tell you that nothing is more important than the exposure that young children have to reading and learning at a very, very young age. So here's what I want to talk about today. When I started, it's hard to believe, 35 years ago, I started as a first grade teacher. I knew just from observing the children in my first grade class how many of those children were going to be successful in their school career and how many of them were likely to be unsuccessful. And then I became a high school dropout prevention counselor, and it sort of confirmed what I knew anecdotally from just observing children when they came to school. So after 12 years of being in the school system, I decided that nothing I could do within the school environment would prepare children for success as much as the work we could do as a community before they ever got to school. And it's much harder work, I have to tell you, because when you're focusing on children before they get to school, you're really focusing on the family and making sure the family and the community in which they live is a healthy one. So after all those years of kind of observing, we now have the science. We have the science that tells us that the brain is the only organ of the body that's not fully developed at birth, and it's growing the fastest during the first 5 years of life. Some researchers will tell you that up to 90% of a child's brain is developed in those first 5 years. And if children don't get the nurturing, the stimulation, the enriching environments they need, not only will they start out behind in school, they're likely to never catch up. And so we used to talk a lot about the achievement gap. And so I think it's a better way of saying it is it's an opportunity gap. Children that don't have the same opportunities when they enter school are likely to never finish school. And we also have a lot of support these days for early childhood. A poll that was done a couple of years ago by a polling company that works regularly for the Wall Street Journal said that over 84% of the voters in North Carolina think we should put more money into early childhood education. Now, that's not to say our policymakers have actually done that, but I believe that they will. There's just too much evidence about the importance of this investment, because we know that if we don't invest in the needs of young children today, we'll be paying for all the needs that they have going forward, such as remediation in school, grade retention, incarceration, and those costs are exorbitant. So it really is important that we start working as early as we can. And you know why? I don't know why I bring all these notes, because I get up here and I'm like, I have no idea what's on this piece of paper because I'm just talking. So if I lose my place, I'll get back to it eventually. But what I wanted to talk to you about this morning are the three things I think are essential for making sure that children have what they need. One of those things is we must take the long view. I doubt in my lifetime, and probably not in the lifetime of most of you, will we ever see the perfect world for young children. But we have to be making decisions today with that long view in mind of how things will turn out eventually. Long view. The second thing I want to talk about is the power of community. And I talk all over the state, and there's no greater sense of community, not only because I've lived here for a long time, but there's just this wonderful, palatable sense of community here. And the sense that you all are responsible for the children of this community. I remember Ronnie Donovan telling me one time that most of the children that graduate from the high school year won't stay here. They're going to go somewhere else. But almost every child that drops out of high school is going to be in Person County. And so that really resonated with me when he said that. And so we really have to think about how the community takes care of these children. And the third thing is, you really have to have a vision for what you want to achieve on behalf of young children and the economic viability of your community, because they're so closely related. The health and vitality and viability of a society is completely dependent on the health and well-being of its youngest children. There's an old Hopi saying that as the elders of the tribe would sit around and talk about their future, they would always ask, the first question was, how are the children? Because they knew that if their children were not well, the future of their tribe was not secure. And I think of a day and imagine a time when we could all, as policymakers or just informal leaders in our community, ask that question every time a decision is being made: how will this affect our children? Because if we do that, then we're going to have a better future for all of our children. So let me start with the long view. Some of you might know Steve Watkins, and that he happens to like to fly airplanes. And a couple of years ago, he did a round-the-world trip. Some of you may have heard about that. And he didn't let us know exactly what he was going to be embarking on, because I think he realized we would not have been in favor of that, we meaning the family. And the last leg of the trip was from Japan, Anchorage, Alaska. It's a 13-hour flight over the Pacific. And in the back of so there's two pilots. In the back of the airplane were 3 large bladders of fuel and 4 or 5 of those little gas cans that you put in your lawnmower, so that they could refuel the airplane as they're crossing the Pacific. I knew none of this until it was over. And we were getting ready to go to a Pilots Club dinner, and he said, I need to tell you something before you get there, hear it from somebody else. So of course he's safe, but he didn't tell me the story until he had to. So what was happening is they were flying from from Japan to Anchorage. They lost an engine. And it was in the refueling process, and they got some air in the fuel line. Apparently, fuel lines don't like air. And so the other pilot was flying the airplane, and the other pilot was trying to bleed the air out of the airline, and Steve was flying the airplane. And I think it was maybe 5 minutes, but it probably seemed like a few lifetimes before the engine cranked back up. It was a twin-engine turboprop. And at that point, they decided, okay, we've had some damage probably to the propeller flying without it moving. And so the other pilot said, well, let's just ask if we can land here in the Aleutian Islands, where there's a military base. And so he picked up the radio and said, can we land here? And they said, request denied. So Steve picked up the microphone and said, we're declaring an emergency. And of course, international law says you declare an emergency, you can land. So they landed in this little Aleutian island, and things settled down a bit. But he told a story that made me think about how powerful it is to take the long view. So he was walking around on this little island, and between where he was and the next island was the international date line. He said, now Cindy, wrap your head around this. I was standing in today, and I was looking into tomorrow. And I said, oh man, that is going to be a speech one day. And so that's what we really have to do with our children. We can't think that we're going to solve all the problems that they face today. But if we stand in today and look into tomorrow, we have a much better chance of preparing those children for success in school and in life. So we also have to take as we take the long view, we have to not only think about the future, we also have to think about now. So some of the things that we're doing right now matter tremendously. With the work that the partnership is doing, they're providing high-quality childcare so parents can afford to go to work and know that their children are in a safe environment. And I know you all have been doing that work for many, many years. So that's kind of the here and now. But as we're focusing on supporting the workforce of the here and now, we have to think about creating the workforce of the future, and that is the long view. And it takes the community. If you all will hold on just a second, I'm going to go over there and steal my glass of water. I have this allergy thing that just won't stop. So it takes a community. That was my second point and my second story. You know, there's nobody from Raleigh or Washington, D.C. or anywhere else that's going to come into Roxborough and save all the children for you. It really is your work, and you've done such a great job of it. But I remember a story from when I was a child, and those of you know me know that I grew up on a farm in Southside Virginia, and it was a tobacco farm and a cattle farm and a pig farm, and it was actually called a sustainable farm. Now, I didn't even know back then what that meant, but everything we had came from the farm. And I remember every year, on usually the coldest day of the year, we would have hog slaughtering day. Did any of you ever have that great privilege? I should have known Ronnie did, yeah. And so, whole family would get together, friends and neighbors would come over, and we would slaughter the hogs. And we'd put them in the salt bin and then hang them up and smoke them and do whatever you do to the parts and pieces of hogs. I was too little to really remember all the grueling details, but enough that it left an impression on me. It was what happened after the hog killing that was really impressive to me. I remember that every year around Christmas time, another farmer would come to Dad's house and say, "Will you buy my ham?" And Dad would say, "Sure, I'll buy your ham." And he would buy the ham and he would hang it up in the smokehouse with the other 20 or 25 hams he already had hanging there. And I remember a conversation that my mother had with him one night, and she said, "You know, I just don't understand why you always buy Marshall's hams when we have so many already in the smokehouse." He said, "Yes, I do, because otherwise Marshall wouldn't be able to have Christmas for his family." And he said, "And I have more than enough." And although we weren't wealthy, my dad always was able to provide for 4 children and a neighbor in need. And I think that's what communities do. They not only take care of their families, they take care of anybody else in need. And that was such a profound lesson for me on what it means to be part of a community. So that's what you all do here so well. You know, I remember the first board of directors that we had with Partnership for Children here had 65 members. Do you remember that, Ronnie? 65 members. And it was just because everybody wanted to be a part of this great initiative that was going on. Of course, we eventually came to our senses and realized that that was a little unwieldy, and were able to get the board down to a reasonable size. But that's the kind of energy and commitment that it takes to really make a difference for young children. But this all starts with a vision. And we had that vision 25 years ago, and I believe the vision still exists. But you have to keep talking about it, and you have to keep telling people. Sometimes I get frustrated in Raleigh when I want people to hear and understand my message about the importance of investing in young children, and they don't quite get it. And so I was talking to someone yesterday who said, you just have to keep saying it over and over and over again. And people will eventually begin to hear it and understand it. Because 25 years ago, when we were talking about early childhood, probably only the 65 people who were working on the application really got it. But now I can walk into any senator's or legislator's office in Raleigh, and they meet me at the door telling me about brain science and the return on investment. So the message is getting out there, but we have to keep saying it over and over again. And I'm sorry for my scratchy throat. So to inspire a vision, I'm going to take a story from my daughter. Many of you know Carrie Ann, who, by the way, is graduating with an MSW in a couple of weeks from Gallaudet University in DC. Couldn't be more proud. But she taught me something when she was about 8 years old. She came into the kitchen one day and she said, "Mom, I want a kitten." I said, "Well, that's fine, honey, but we're not getting a kitten." She said, "Okay." And so she went on her way. And a while later she came, I was in the kitchen doing something, and I noticed there were two empty bowls in the floor. And I said, "Carrie, do you know what these are?" She said, "Yeah." So it's for the kitten. One for the water, one for the food. I said, "Well, that's fine, sweetie, but we're not getting a kitten." "Yeah, I know, Mom, but if we did, this is where the kids would eat, this is where the kitten would drink." And I said, "Okay, well, just understand, don't be disappointed, we're not getting a kitten." And then a little while later, she came in and she'd been playing with some of her doll clothes. And she came up with this tiny little thing. She said, "And this is what the kitten is going to wear." And I said, "We're not getting a kitten." And then she came back with her little stroller. "And this is what the kitten is going to ride in." And I said, "We're not getting a kitten." And it wasn't long after that she had a phone call from her friend. And she got off the call and she said, "Mom, guess what? Paige's cat just had kittens." I said, "Well, that's really nice, sweetheart." She said, "Can we go see them?" "Absolutely, but we're not getting a kitten." So we went to see them, and as we were driving home with the kitten in the car, two things were abundantly clear to me. My 8-year-old daughter was much smarter than I. And the second thing I learned was she knew how to inspire a vision. That cat came to live in our house weeks before it ever showed up. She made me see it. She made me feel like it was already there. She created a vision that I just couldn't say no to. And that's what you have to do in your community. When you talk about children and the needs of children, you have to inspire a vision that nobody can walk away from, that everybody will say, "Yes, that's important enough for me to dedicate my time and my energy and my passion for." So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Take the long view. Stand in today. Take care of the things you need to take care of today. But look into tomorrow and to the future of these young children. And know that these children belong to the whole community. It requires every one of you. And I'm so grateful to all the law enforcement people that are here today and how critical you are to the work we do with young children and their families. And remember that you have to inspire that vision. Let me just say one other thing as I'm in closing and as I'm looking at these police officers. When I started teaching 35 years ago, it was a very different world. We didn't have an opioid crisis. We didn't have a foster care system that's just bursting at the seams because there's nowhere for these children to go when their parents are addicted or incarcerated because of opioids. And it never occurred to me 35 years ago that somebody would be talking to me about the possibility of carrying a gun into my classroom. So much has changed, but at the same time, so much has stayed the same. The needs of young children have not changed. The environment has, but their needs have not. So as we think about the long view and the community and the vision, remember, it's what you all can do together to make sure that this is a safe and enriching environment for young children. Thank you so much for having me back today. It's been such a pleasure to reconnect with all of you. If I didn't get to say hello to you as you were gathering this morning, please see me before I leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I have to say, we do have a very supportive community, and I'm very grateful for everything you all do, and remember that message just tweaks every year a little bit. So from the community, we do at the partnership choose one person who has been a great advocate for children and has helped the partnership specifically, and we like to call them our champion for children. And Charlene Witt is going to make that announcement.
Good morning. I'm here to announce the 2018 Champion for Children recipient. This is never an easy decision to make because the partnership is supported by numerous entities and individuals. When preparing to nominate individuals for this award, the committee begins to think about what is entailed in being a champion for children. Our starting point was the definition of a champion. Merriam-Webster defines a champion as a militant advocate or defender, one that does battle for another's rights or honor. The 2018 Champion for Children is an individual who is a vigilant supporter of the children of Person County. The Champion for Children exemplifies the quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? It is evident that the individual selected as our champion has a sincere desire to help and care for others. This commitment to helping others has been inherent during their youngest years, from looking after younger siblings and cousins and expressing concern and the desire to help if someone became injured or sick. Our champion is instrumental in numerous partnership events, especially Angel Tree. This individual takes the time each year to assemble bikes, trikes, and any other toys that need to be assembled. This is a tremendous help to the partnership staff, as well as the recipients of the toys. This individual is also instrumental in coordinating a golf tournament with Duke Energy Progress, in which the partnership was honored to be a recipient of the proceeds. The golf tournament was well organized, energetic, and all-around fun event to be a part of. We are very appreciative of all the hard work that took place in order to make the event a success. The individual that was selected as this year's Champion for Children demonstrates the following quote by Leo Roston. The purpose of life is not to be happy, but to matter. To be productive, to be useful, to have made some difference that you have lived it all. So today, we bestow the 2018 Champion for Children Award to Mr. Judson Rogers. We would like to thank him for helping us deal with the
Thank you, Judson.
That's great.
Okay, we probably want a picture after you, before you leave. That concludes our program. Is Hunt still in the room? He is.
All right, Ian, thanks for you guys' message today. Very nice. And that's going to wrap up today's Good Morning Coffee Hour. The next coffee hour will be May 23rd, which is coming up right around the corner here before you know it. Person, Family, Medical, and Dental Center will host a special breakfast for Mental Health Awareness Month. So that's going to wrap us up today. Everybody's free to leave and go back to work. Have a great day.